we're entering a very new era here. And so depending on how severe geopolitics and the trade wars get going forward, they're going to start looking at these levers more seriously. Obviously, one of the big one is fiscal spending. They don't want to do a bazooka like 2008, and they've already done a lot of monetary easing over the course of the past couple of years, so there's not that much oomph there. But there is spending they can certainly do. And in our latest data, we have actually seen our proxy for infrastructure, infrastructure spending start expanding and go up. Transportation construction firms are borrowing more, they're investing more, they're hiring more. So they are readying the ammo gun in case they need to use it. But I think they're trying to figure out whether this is going to be a short-term problem or whether this is the new norm.
So, Leland, nobody knows this better than you, but where is the capacity for China and the willingness for China to really go toe-to-toe with President Trump and the U.S. on these tariffs? What is their capacity there, do you think?
Well, their capacity and their willingness are two different things. I think their willingness is very high. I think we're already seeing there was a signaling before it happened, and then now that it's happened, you see there was the message was always, if you do something to us, we're gonna respond. You do something else to us, again, we're gonna respond. Now, the problem here is that China doesn't have the capacity to go one-on-one in the trade field with the United States, simply because the United States is a massive importer and China is a very weak importer by comparison. So if you're just talking about trade, the U.S. has much more leverage and can put much more pain on China. This is why once you get to a certain point, and to the extent that Beijing is willing to risk an escalation, you're going to see things expand outside the purely trade realm. It's not going to be just a conversation about tariffs. Already, we're moving outside of it, but you could expand it more dramatically to other areas and even punishing U.S. firms on the ground in China.
I mean, yeah, we already heard the headline that China's, telling students that want to study in the U.S., like, think twice, for example, before you do that. In terms of levers it can pull, I know you mentioned helping domestic capacity and sort of pumping money into the system for consumers might not be the best. But in terms of the Yuan devaluation, for example, how orderly can China keep that?
I think they can keep it pretty orderly because they want to keep it orderly. It seems like every time there's any kind of geopolitical tension between the U.S. and China, any trade tension, there's anything going on in terms of just a weak Chinese economy, there's people screaming to the sky, the yuan, devalue it, devalue it. They really don't want to do this. It's not that it's not a tool in the box to use, but it's for break the glass emergencies. It doesn't mean they're not going to blow off steam against the USD. It doesn't mean they're not going to have a signaling purpose from moving it incrementally. But they really don't want to do one of these one-off devaluations. It would be a massive escalation. It would be seen very poorly, not just the United States and around the world, but you're also sitting in a situation where you're going to create a lot of stress inside the Chinese economy. You're going to put pressure on having more capital outflows. You're trying to increase consumption. By weakening the yuan, you're going to hurt consumption even further. So this is not just some piece of trade artillery that they can use willy-nilly. To go there in a big way, they need to really have a substantial escalation.
Hey, Leland, does China view this U.S. nationalism from President Trump administration, from a global trade, from a global military, political, as a real opportunity to expand its influence? Do they view this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to do that?
I think there's a lot of voices in China. I think that they don't like some of what's happening. I think other things they see as an opportunity. Certainly, if U.S. allies and partner relationships are breaking down either in the region or around the world, they'd love to take advantage of that. And not necessarily by replacing the U.S., by simply saying, stop helping the U.S., stop buying into what they're doing. So there are opportunities in here if it's played wrong by the U.S. government. But I think that we're in such a dramatic place differently from where we were a few months ago. They're trying to digest this just like the rest of us.
Will this move China to make connections and trade deals and more economic ties with the rest of the world? And is the rest of the world open to that?
China would love lots of trade deals, but China wants them on their terms. And what they want to be able to do is not import on other countries' exports, and they want to just shove their exports down everybody else's throat. So to the extent that they can strong-arm countries or there's unique advantages to having some sort of bilateral relationship, then maybe these proceed. But keep in mind, to the extent the U.S. shuts itself off from Chinese goods, we import a lot of Chinese goods and have for a long, long time, then they're going to have to send these goods somewhere else. So in addition to all the overcapacity problems you already have, you have simply a need to replace the demand for Chinese exports elsewhere. They're going to be flooding Southeast Asia. They're going to be flooding Europe. They're going to be flooding South America. So this is going to have to demand a policy response from all these other countries. And the question is, do you really want to do a trade deal with the Chinese if you're not getting anything back in return?